What's up, dreamers? Today I'm going to be sprinkling my wealth of information back into your life because today we're talking about hair. Just recently, I released a short where I showcased my newest creation, my chibis of Death Note, and somebody left in the comment section for me that they would like a tutorial on how to do hair. I guess they were just mesmerized by the highlights of Misa and light. The thing about hair is that you need to have 3 things, because it always seems to come in groups of 3. And that would be your highlights, your shadows, and your, if I can get up there, mid-tones. 3. You got your highlights, your shadow, your mid-tones. All of these components merged together, working together like a big happy family, or will create beautiful, elegant, and dynamic hair. Case in point, chibis. Learning how to draw and highlight your hair and color it will improve your artwork significantly. It did for me. One of the creations that I'm most proud of was my Buggy the Pirate chibi. Of course, it was another chibi available in the Etsy shop. Hair is not actually something that I'm good at. I'm not good at coloring and drawing hair. I am learning. So what I have learned, I want to impart to you. So let's show how I did Ryuk's hair. By the way, if you want to see a complete portfolio of all of the chibi hair that I have done, you can check it out in my sticker shop over on Etsy and get yourself a nice little collection. They look really good on the back of iPads, phones, and notebooks, anywhere you jolly well please. So you'll notice in this creation that I have a variety of hair color. We've got black, we've got yellow, we've got brown, and then we've got some gray tones in there as well. But you'll notice that there's a pattern that all follows the same formula, the same thread, if you will. Now, I am not saying that I have perfected this method. I'm still learning just like you are, but what works for me is getting out all of my markers, or at least some of my markers. Of course, I want to start out with a colorless creation, right? It's just blank, it's bland, it's just white. And then I'm going to find markers in the color that I want that have a variety that go from dark to light. I try to find the lightest version of whatever color it is I'm looking for. So for this one, I want to have gray, so I find the lightest gray that I can, and then I swatch all of them. Fortunately for me, I had Spectrum markers, Spectrum Noir markers, and they already came with a nice value system, so I didn't really have to poke and prod and swatch too much. So the process that works best for me is that I actually work from the highlights backwards, right? And so I will use my lightest marker and I will do a bunch of strokes in the hair. Now, the other thing is to find where exactly the head or the hair is curved. So you can see here I've got a bunch of curls, which are very difficult to draw. I'm working on it. But you'll notice that it gets much brighter, obviously, the closer to the light source that it is. And then it gets darker as it moves away. So I start with the highlight, meaning that I leave actually blank pieces of paper, right? So there's a portion of the paper that is not actually colored. And then I do a bunch of strokes with my lightest gray. And the process simply after that is just keep moving on up with the colors that you have, getting darker along the way, and making sure that you stay with the same form that you created. You want to make sure that you find your source of light first, or at least you think about it. We're going to be using our friend Mr. Snorlax here as an example. Let's look. So using my phone, I turn on the flashlight and I use it as my main source of light. And Mr. Snorlax there, you'll notice that has a strong highlight on one side of his body. The rest of it falls into the shadows. So this lets me know that everything on that side over here needs to be brighter than what's over here. And so I just incorporate that into my hair, whatever's closest to the light source. Now, you can exaggerate things as you go along. Obviously, the top of Ryuk's hair wasn't the brightest, because I wanted it to look like there was a curvature right here, exactly right here, and then basically just the hair was just a little bit pushed back, and that means that it was somewhat darker. So that's the same thing if you'll notice on Misa's hair or even on Light's hair, it'll have a curve because our head is rounded. The brightest point is where the head pushes the hair out just just a little bit so that the rest of it is a little bit darker and colorful. So I mean, it is kind of simple, but it's not necessarily easy because you have to then learn where the curves are, even if you're hairless, like my man Darth Maul, who doesn't exactly have much hair to work with, but he does of course have a head to work with, and you'll see that there is a highlight at the front of his head, and then it gets darker as it goes back. That is because his forehead is coming out further than the rest of his head. Same thing with hair. If you want to make it look like it's rich and glossy, you got to make sure that you have highlights, and if you want to make sure that it's really vibrant and has depth to it, the way that we women pay so much money for, you got to have your midtones and your shadows. Knowing where your light source is coming from is key. And if you don't have an actual light source, you just envision it in your head. That's essentially what I did. You'll notice that pretty much all of my chibis kind of follow the same pattern. I always have the light over here and the shadows are over here, and so that's just what I go. I don't actually have a light source, I just create one, and I work within those parameters of science. So if you're wanting to make your hair look a lot more interesting, more vibrant and luscious, you need to find your light source and then work from your lights to your darks. You could work from your darks to your light if you wanted to, whatever way works best for you. I find that it works best for me to do light to dark. Oh, and I forgot about my special bonus tip. What I also do to keep things manageable and in control, especially when it comes to alcohol markers, is that the original marker that I start out with, the lightest color that I have, I keep it on hand to blend it in to the darker color, so that way it doesn't overtake. It's almost like a colorless blender, but it's not because it has pigment in it. It works, but again, whatever works for you, trust the process, but that's how it is for me. So find your source of light, know the curves of your hair, and then work from light to dark, and just practice, practice, practice.
Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to look me up over on Patreon if you want access to exclusive content as well as full episodes of my art podcast.